Can I call you back in like 2 minutes?
Yes.
I really need to take this call. I'm sorry.
No, I'll
I'm
wait.
so sorry.
I'll wait. You're good. You're good.
Okay, I'm gonna just leave you on and put you on mute.
Welcome back to Scuttle Hustle with me, Katie Mack, or Chief, whichever you prefer. I am no longer on USS Baton, and I'm using this podcast to support my master's program capstone project. And this episode will be a one-of-one, where we'll be discussing one of the biggest questions for Navy communicators right now. How do we use AI in public affairs without turning it into Skynet or just a fancy grammar checker? I'm joined today by Master Chief Mass Communications Specialist Mark Schultz, an AI working group member and seasoned Navy communicator, to dig into clean data, custom LLMs, training, and trust. If you've ever copied another command's press release and called it a template, this one's for you. Let's get into the interview.
In our working group, what we really need to figure out is what do we want from AI? And I think that in all the discussions that I've been in with professors, with industry, with other commands, nobody's got that figured out. Everybody wants AI. Everybody is like, let's jump in, let's do this. Nobody knows how to do it. Generative AI, LLMs, are the easy go-to because you can access them right now. The military has been able to develop a couple of LLM platforms that we can use with CUI information, which I think is important for public affairs. Even some secret platforms. And those are great because that gives everybody access. You don't need to pay for it. You got unlimited use of it. And as those evolve, they've gotten a million times better since when they first came out. But those are individual use type things. And for public affairs, I think we need to take a more holistic approach. And when Chinfo was first starting to talk about it, and in their roadmap, they talk about creating an AI working group. They talk about putting somebody in charge of that working group to kind of drive everything. But then they also talked about, what do we want to get out of it? Do we want to create a custom LLM that is built specifically for Navy public affairs? Do we want to, do we just want to get in on a regular commercial type of LLM and give everybody access to that for them to use? What are we looking for? And I think we need to kind of figure that out before we go too far. But when we talk about AI, there's the LLMs or the generative AI. There's machine learning, which means everything gets better in the future. You know all this stuff. But then there's also the data side, which you captured in your questions, which I thought is what I think is really the key to everything. Data aggregation, data standardization, and cleaning. I think that is the most important thing that we can work on right now, because without it, it doesn't matter what AI we have. It doesn't matter what machine learning we have. None of that works at an individual level. I mean, it works, but then you're going to get individual responses, and you're never going to get a unified system that works for everything. The capabilities that we would have if we had clean data that everybody is feeding into a single system allows us to do so much more. So if you're feeding in all of your press releases, all of your speeches, all of your media advisories, all of your after action reports, all of your lessons learned, all of that data then can be parsed out with the help of AI. Like, we don't have to do it. AI can do it. And be made available like a database. And so when you're working, it can be pulling that stuff for you and saying, hey, there's, you're talking about this homecoming. Well, the Forge Strike Group, for their homecoming, the Forge Strike Group posted all of these articles. So here's all this information that the Forge Strike Group has done. Let me use that to help you put together your return to homeport story. And Chinfo's, their messages are over here. And so we want to make sure we incorporate those. And so now you've got the system helping you put together these things that you need in a more automated way, or making it available to you. And then, oh, by the way, this person gave a speech about the Ford Strike Group. The president was talking about the Ford Strike Group and the amazing things that they did when he was out to visit. So you could pull that, you could pull a quote from that speech. And that's at the like the tactical level when you're looking at putting together a story. When you're talking about more strategically, what can you do? You can take this is where all of that requires human input, but you put in what your command, these are the priorities of Navy leaders or military leadership, whatever. So you've got the Sec Wars leadership, priorities. You've got SecNav, you've got CNO's priorities. Then you can start building out communication strategies. And it can help you do that. And the more information it has, the easier it is for it to run a SWOT analysis, to do the research for you, figure out what the surveys, if you put in the surveys that we do annually, hey, this is what the surveys are saying. This is kind of the things we want to focus on. And that'll drive your communication objectives. And can help you put that together. So now you've got a communication strategy that is saving you a ton of time putting together. And then from there, I got to put together a PAG for this, Ford Homecoming. So then it's using that communication strategy to help inform the way that it writes the PAG. And then all the way down to that press release, everything is all aligned. Everything is saying the same thing. You're tracking all of the what's the right word? Like analytics from that stuff to see if you're meeting the objectives of your PAG or of your communication strategy. So much you can do with good, clean data. And AI on top of that clean data can kind of bring it all together for you. And then machine learning takes what you're doing, sees what's working through social media, through media engagements, through whatever it is, through your web activity, and says, hey, this is working really well, this isn't working really well, and then it'll start to shift how your strategies are built. This is not an initial thing, but it'll say, hey, your social media strategy is not working well on Facebook because you're posting 2-minute videos and then everybody's only looking at 8-minute videos. So in our communication strategy, when we look at it, it's going to suggest that we create these short clips that get posted with this kind of content for this reason. And it'll help drive your strategy, which will impact the things where you want to get at, the places that you want to get after. So that's kind of like what's in my head with what I think is really what's needed.
Yeah, I can see how automating that would make life so much easier, especially when we're being asked to do so much more with less humans involved. And to be honest, a lot of the things that you're talking about, we already kind of do. We don't reinvent the wheel. We steal from other commands or borrow, right, so to speak, and rewrite it for that command. Because why make something brand new when we all are doing the same thing? And right, it's not plagiarism, because you're just taking the bones and then rewriting from the template. So right, it's just helping to make that ease of sharing a little bit easier. One of the questions that I did have in the survey was, if we were to have something that was like an MM or an LLM, that was able to work solely for the Navy, that can work on Canes or Nipper, and if that would make people a little less, unsure of AI or trust it more. And I got even across the board reviews of no, yes, and maybe. It was literally 33.3% for each box, or I guess pie.
Yeah.
So it was across the board, just like even. And I mean, obviously I had 4 separate
Interesting.
surveys, but that was from the MC community at large, which had the largest populace of responses, which was still roughly about 28 folks.
Yeah.
So it was still a pretty low number, even though we are a small community. That was about the extent of people that responded. And I do have a mix of like contractors, government civilians, officers, junior, senior enlisted, and junior and senior officers as well. So the data pool isn't just the MCs. You know, it's a pretty diverse group of people that were polled. And different ranges of time in service, from like 0 to 5 years to, I think the largest number was 20 to 25, I want to say. I don't think I had anyone over 30 years. I might, but that was about it. But I mean, yeah, so like, but analytics and using those analytics to help us develop communication strategies, or to help us do our campaigns for social media and PAGs. Also, you know, something that I think is the biggest concern is, you know, how will our adversaries use this information against us if it were to be on open network?
I think that's a real issue and a real concern. The work that we do is already in the open. Maybe not some of the CUI stuff that's in the PAG, but for the most part, communication strategies are not classified. PAGs are not classified. All the press releases and most of the work that we do is publicly releasable. So I do think that an aggregation of it all in one central place, if they were to hack into that, they'd be like, oh, look at this. But what are we doing, really? We're just talking about those communication objectives. So I don't think it's going to paint such a greater picture of our capabilities, because it's all the releasable stuff. Is there, and then I think if you put it on a military system, make it CUI capable, capable probably. There's a level of security in there so that, you know, Joe Schmo out on his basement isn't just looking it up and doing a quick hack and finding it. So there's a little bit of a level of security there. And then all of this stuff being on the cloud, like our whole Nipper network is on the cloud. So if anybody hacks that, that's, you know, they're going to get what they're going to get. So I hear those concerns, but I feel like the work that we do could it be damaging if a PAG that has, you know, stuff that's on background that's not for public release gets out there? Maybe, because you're kind of maybe giving a background story on something that, you know, you don't want the public to know about, but that's not going to be detrimental. It's not going to hurt. You may have to do a little bit of cleanup with it. But I don't think that the work that we do is worth not pursuing this. This is the future. This is where we're going. And once industry and the government figures out how to do this, it's going to be here. Skynet is going to be a real thing. And so let's start working to figure that out. I'm not as concerned about the security implications of having a system with all of our data. We already have a system with all of our data. It's called Nipper.
One of the things that when I was talking to Holly too, one of the things that she brought up was, you know, the integration of social media into the military, into the Navy specifically, and how, you know, we were behind on that. And sometimes I feel like we're still behind, because there's still a lot of stuff that we
just don't do it right.
Well, yeah, and I that's still behind, right? Because we're not doing it the way that we should be doing it. So, you know, do we need to take lessons learned from how we integrated social media? Because we didn't get social media policy until what, like 5 years ago, something like that, less than that. And then now when we have this new AI policy that came out back in June or July, but even then there's still policy that we as a department of the Navy need to make. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there needs to be a kind of a guiding policy, like this is how we are. It can't define AI use, because AI is moving too fast, and it can't limit what we can do, because that would hamstring us in developing any processes or programs or capabilities. So it needs to be kind of a broad, overarching, hey, with AI, and I think the DoD instruction does a pretty good job of it. Here's broadly how AI is to be used in public affairs. And I think you just take and modify that for the Navy. We need to be mindful of the ethics behind it. We need to make sure that people are always in the loop and that security is a consideration. And with those three things in mind, go forth and use it. Our other documents, our VI instruction, our public affairs policy, all of those things already have built in those ethical requirements, the way that we're allowed to handle imagery. And I don't advocate for using AI imagery generation for anything external. If it's going external, it better not look real. If it was created by AI, in my opinion, that introduces far too much doubt in the public's mind. Everything that I'm talking about is internal use or is editable by humans, like a press release or a story. And I don't even really like the idea of stories being generated by AI, but with the amount of information that I give to AI to write stuff for me, it can put it together faster and easier and give me a good starting point. If not a finished product, but at least I can review it and change it. If you're doing an AI generated image or video, there's very little control once it's made. And it looks super real. And I don't think there's really going to be very soon any way to tell. There are systems that can tell that AI images, if AI was used to create an image, there are systems that can detect that, and likely for video too, but you have to have that program, that specialized program. And for Joe Schmo out does not have that capability. And we see it on Facebook. I see these videos on Facebook all the time, and I'm like, none of this stuff is real. And I honestly, I can't, it's very hard to see things. Like, even I was looking at something this morning with the votes, and I'm like, I don't even know if I trust this video, just because AI is that good and nobody out there is to do good. Everybody out on social media is to do bad. So I think back to the policies, I think we need a broad overarching policy, one that supports the DoD PA, AI and PA policy, that doesn't really restrict it that much more, if any. And that way we can evolve with AI as we need to without having to come back to this instruction. Now, that said, these instructions can be written by AI now, so you can pump instructions or changes or updates, or you can pump all that stuff out so much faster now. Like, hey, here's our current instruction. We want to modify this, this, and this. It'll go in, it'll make those changes for you, and you have a new instruction ready to go, rather than, getting on Word and starting to type, and how do I want to read this, and how do I want to write that? And, so you can get stuff done a lot faster. But still, I think something that's broad will give us the flexibility that we need.
While you were talking, I was thinking about, how AI literacy really plays a huge part in all of this, and making sure that people are on board with what it is that they need to be able to do, let alone like what is expected. Like, we're not removing the human element, but at the same time, this can help make our processes a little bit faster or a little bit easier than having to create everything from scratch or go hunt down the thing to help us build what we need to build. So how do you think that we should implement like AI literacy, like training AI literacy to our folks?
That's a good question, one that I think needs a lot of work and discussion. I've been working with a Syracuse professor who is teaching AI up at Syracuse University. But he's come down, he's done a couple of workshops with the Navy with us that I've helped put together. Those are small group things. Those aren't big, broad training for all of the Navy. There is training available through Nipper, GPT. Like they've got a whole laundry list of trainings that you can do. There's tons of free AI training online. I don't know that we have enough people that can give training on AI just yet, or at least not at a more advanced level. And I don't know that, I don't know, and this is where your research would probably be helpful, where our folks are at. I believe that AI knowledge, general AI knowledge has expanded enough that to show somebody ChatGPT and say, okay, this is ChatGPT, this is chat interface, you just talk to it like normal, here's how you can do this and the way you should get it to do that. I think people are already there. And then, so where do you go from that? I think talking to folks about the capabilities, the concerns that they have with security, with trust, with that kind of stuff, I think that's still a valid training topic. And those are easier to talk through in a big group forum. But I haven't figured out how to tackle because nobody wants to sit through a brief when you're talking about something that's on the computer. It should be hands-on type training. And I haven't figured out how to tackle that yet.
Maybe it's something as simple as as I wouldn't say simple because nothing is simple when DINFOS is involved, but I was gonna say hey, let's get it at the the new accession level, at the PAO level, at the C school level. And even then, like I said, working at DMA, and my husband is an instructor, a civilian instructor over at DINFOS, it's like nothing is simple when the schoolhouse is involved unless we make our own schoolhouse, and then it could be easier.
Right.
I do like that we're incorporating it into the Syracuse program some. And oh, by the way, this master's program is at Syracuse University. So I love that I keep getting all these plugs for Syracuse. So my professor is going to love this.
I love Syracuse. I went to the motion media class back in 2006.
Yeah, no, I saw your picture in the room.
All for it. Fantastic. It's still up. I love that.
More. They got the new room. It's all been taken down.
She keeps them in her house probably. So I think that DINFOS is an answer. I think all the services are looking for something. The problem is it's too slow. From creating the course, the requirements, to creating the course, to then teaching the course, AI is moving too rapidly, and all of that stuff is going to be outdated. You can maybe build a class on what AI is and isn't and how it works, but at the same time, I still think even that is moving too fast for a DINFOS class to keep up with, unless you were able to make the class something that you could update on the fly with technology, or allow the instructors to do, but I don't think you can do that with DINFOS. But you absolutely, that's how you would indoctrinate all of the service, all of the MCs into using AI, because in there you're in an academic environment, so you're not just it's not just training, it's actual education. Here's what AI is, here's how it works, here's the things that it can do, the things that it can't do, the things that you need to be involved with. Here's the ethical challenges that we face. Here's the, all of that kind of stuff. Not just, here's how you use a ChatGPT.
Yeah, but you got to think too. When it comes to Dinfos, you're adding, especially if it was like for like the A school level, you're adding in one more thing that they have to figure out or learn about, and an extremely condensed course now, because now they're doing 87 days, and they've got to learn, how to be mass communicators, everything from journalism to videography to photography, and some of them have never even touched some of these things, let alone barely know how to write a sentence. That becomes even part of the challenge too, is where does it go? Where does it get fit in? And how do we make sure that it gets trained at the right levels, and that it's also, like you said, it keeps up with how AI is actually moving and how quickly it is. It's like it might be better off being like an annual GMT that you find on NKO or JKO for like your regular general military training kind of stuff.
Right. And the challenge I pose with that is how many people actually pay attention to that stuff. They click through to get it done. And so no learning is really getting done with those things. So I don't, and this is why I say I don't know what the answer is. Maybe if we could develop a Navy course that we could give at the DET, and it could be optional maybe, but hold it once a month or once a quarter and say, hey, we're going to do some AI training.
That's true, but bright people doing that every time.
But you got to have somebody that can teach you. You got to, right. So all of it has challenges. It's just a matter of what's the best path. But here's what I will say. There needs to be investment. And I think that the administration, the Department of War, even the Navy is all for the investment in this stuff, but it needs to be thought through and presented in a compelling manner that can show results. There are lots of AI programs being worked on in the Navy, and going through the Navy's AI person or organization, it's got to go through that route. It's got to then get approved and to be built, but you got to be able to show why you're doing this. And if it's not aligned with the way they're thinking, it'll never get approved. So like the idea of a central public affairs, we'll call it a database, but whatever that looks like, is that really the right answer? Is that where we want to start? Because that is an incredibly massive undertaking. And the cost of that would be prohibitive to even get started at this point. I don't think that we'd be able to do it. You'd have to do it kind of like, hey, here's this project. Everybody just upload your stuff here. And now we have a central repository where everything is, kind of like Divids. Divids is for imagery. I'm not talking for imagery though. So all of the stuff gets put here. And then you say, hey, we want to be able to find this information and use it for something. And then that's a whole nother contract to build on top of it.
Is that something that we would, I was kind of going through all the different possible stakeholders, right? And one of the stakeholders that I came up with is the Chief Digital and Artificial Intelligence Office that is part of the Department of War. And wouldn't this be something that we would want to maybe loop in with them or maybe partner up and see if there's a way ahead for us?
I think you have to. I think that department should see everything that all the branches are doing. We are not unique in what we are trying to do, and not as a community, not as a service. Everybody is trying to do this and figure this out. And I've seen it here at Fleet Forces where they've had over 150 contracts out to figure out, for AI. And then, hey, what are we putting our money towards? And they bake it down and said, okay, of all these contracts, how many are production ready? If we're going to put some money down on it, how many are production ready? They shrunk that list down to like 40 something. And then they said, okay, let's prioritize this 40 production ready AI contracts. And what do we want as Fleet Forces to get out of AI? And they said, okay, we want this, we want this, we want this, we want this, and here's our priority for them. And that got it down to 5. So everybody is trying stuff to see what will fit. If you're just throwing stuff at the board, then you're just wasting money, in my opinion. But if you're coordinating with a group like you were just talking about with the, Department of War's AI cell, you can understand what everybody else is doing. And maybe I think that the Navy also has their AI thing, and I bet they are on a working group with the Department of War and the other services. But because AI is bigger than just an LLM and bigger than a community, any community is not necessarily tapped in. Now, Intel, IW, cyber, they might be tapped in a little bit more just because of the nature of what they do, but non-information / intel groups, I don't think they're going to be as tapped in as maybe they'd like to be.
That's where I got some of my my information from. Is I reached out to some of the folks that I know are in the CT and CWT community, IT communities, and that's where some of my data came from.
Well, I think that they will. I would love to see what they have to say. I think we need to work with them. Well, one, we need to work with them because anything that we do is going to have an IT implication. And we already are struggling to can I plug my SD card into a computer? Nope, no way. We've already got a lot of infrastructure challenges with that. But knowing what they are doing and working on and seeing how their process maneuvering all of this can give us some insight on, one, how can we piggyback off of what they're doing to save costs, to align with what others are doing, to blah, blah, blah. But two, okay, this is what they're doing. Maybe I got to go that route too.
So we talked a lot for almost 40 minutes, give or take. Is there anything that you'd like to add or anything that you feel like would be pertinent specifically to my project? I know that we have other conversations that we have to have regarding this entire topic, but that's, separate. Same, but different, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you look at a timeline from now till the future, I think the first place to start is with LLMs and getting folks familiar with how to use that so that they can at least capitalize on generating words right now that can help them do their job faster. So if you're writing a PAG, to be able to write a PAG faster, to write a communication strategy faster, to write a media advisory faster, to take your story and convert it into 18 different things, other, hometown news stories, social media posts, media advisories, all of that kind of stuff, all from you doing the one story. I think that's step one. That's at the individual level. That's not even a command-wide thing. The next step is to figure out how to integrate everything so that all the data is being brought together in the same format, or at least converted into the same format. And I think that there's a couple of different layers that happen on the technical side of that. One, you got to take all of the different formats of things and feed it to this system. And then that system, through AI and through automation, knows, hey, AI can parse it out into these different categories. And we know that these categories match these fields in our database. And so then it puts it in there. And now your database is filling up with information. And then there's going to be some time where that gets filled in with policies, with speeches, with press releases, with communication strategies, with public affairs guidance, with communication plans, with production plans, with events, all of that kind of stuff. With general Navy information, here's these squadrons, these squadrons are attached to these people. I was looking into knowledge graphs. Have you heard of those?
Knowledge graphs? No.
Yeah. So a knowledge graph is like a database, but it's structured for AI. And so you've got this thing, you've got a relationship, and then you've got, now I can't remember the three things, but there's like three things that it has, and it kind of maps everything and how it all connects. And I was like, that's kind of the way we need to go. I don't think that's the route we need to go now after doing more research. But the idea of making connections is huge for integrating AI, because that's what it needs to ultimately be able to do, is to make connections with what you're doing or trying to do to what exists. And so if you're thinking about putting a PAG together for a homecoming, you want all of the units that are part of that strike group already in the system. And really every Navy unit could be in that system. And so when you're writing it, hey, the Ford strike group, well, somewhere we connected that the Ford strike group had these ships in it, and it knows the dates of their deployments and, everything that ship has done because of the press releases that were released. And so then it would pull all of that data into your PAG without you having to say, okay, hand jamming in USS Delbert D. Black, USS, yada, yada, and pulling that information. Like, it would have all of that stuff. There's the upload layer, there's the data normalization layer, and then there's the AI layer on top of that would make those connections and be able to feed it back to you and provide it to you. Sorry, that was a rant. But that's what, so all of those things need to happen and exist for the system that I'm talking about to really work. So
a lot of layers.
Yeah. So it's a long-term thing.
I mean, a lot of these things don't happen overnight. Sometimes it feels like they happen overnight, but AI has been a discussion for decades.
Yeah, right.
But it hasn't really been like, a discussion where it's been this intense until recently. And like by recently, I mean like the last year or 2, 3.
Yeah, since ChatGPT came out, that's when AI became a thing.
Well, it didn't, but it became a
well, that's when it became That's when it became a popular thing, a known now. AI exists. Well, it's existed for a very long time. What you think of AI is just one piece of it. I don't know. I think that's all I've got.
Yeah, that's great. That's, more than enough. That I think, at least for this moment in time.
Thanks for listening to Scuttle Hustle and this conversation with Master Chief Mark Schultz on AI, data, and the future of Navy public affairs. If it made you rethink how your shop writes PAGs, uses LLMs, or treats clean data as more than a buzzword, share this episode with someone in your office or chain of command. For more episodes on AI, military communications, and surviving the next wave of tech without losing the human element, follow the show and let me know if you'd like more. Until next time, may your prompts be clear and your GMTs merciful.